What's going on YouTube? So today we are back with a leg workout. I'm relatively confident this is the first time I've done a leg day walkthrough on here, so hopefully this is something that interests you all. It's been a hot minute since I posted. Last time was January. Obviously I said a while ago on here really is sort of 1-2 videos maximum a month, but last time I posted was January, and at that point I was very early on in my mini cut, so I just want to describe how I got from there to here, which is getting back into a bulk again, which was obviously always the plan. So my mini cut was going really well, emphasis on the word was, and I was actually ahead of schedule. And then I got ill, and it wasn't COVID, it was just some sort of viral infection, but it completely wiped me out. And I was out of the gym and I was sat at maintenance calories for 9 days, so over a week. And I'd set myself 6 weeks for this mini cut, and then I was going away and I'd get back into a bulk when I got back. Now in terms of weight, over those 9 days, I did a really good job at pretty much holding where I left off. However, basically wasted 9 days, which was really annoying because I was ahead of schedule, but then got ill and unfortunately had those 9 days off. So the goal with that mini cut was to lose 5 kilos. So I gained 10 in the bulk before that mini cut, which took about a year, just under a year. So the goal was to drop 5 kilos, obviously as much of it being body fat as possible. Ended up with that 9 days off losing 4.4, which on one hand was really annoying because when I set myself a number, I'm going to go for that number, and I was on track, but I got ill, 9 days off. But to be honest with you, I mean, at the end of the day, is there any point in crying over 0.6 kilos? Like, probably not. So went away, cleared my head for a few days, just kind of physically recovered, and here we are back in a bulk, bringing calories back up nice and gradually, and we have a new training block ready to go. So you know that I'm not a fan of chopping and changing. We keep things in while they're working, take them out when they're not working, and there's not loads of changes to this plan. Monday's always leg day. It just works well for me and my schedule, and this is it. So I'm going to walk you through it. This year the goal is to basically gain another 10 kilos by the end of the year. So I'm going to be finishing the year around sort of somewhere around kind of 73 kilos. Actually no, it would be around about 75 kilos. So that's the goal. So without further ado, I'll walk you through my leg day. Okay, voiceover Sam here. So just going to go through exactly what I'm doing, talk about the reps, the sets, and just the intention of the exercise. So obviously, as you can see, I'm starting out with the Nautilus Nitro line hamstring curl. So we've got 2 sets here. This one that you're watching is a 1 set 12 to 15, and the set that you'll see after this is 1 set of 8 to 10. So with this, what I'm doing is following something that I use quite a lot, which is to use the first higher rep set to really emphasize that shortened range. So what I actually do is you'll see that I'll hold it for 2 seconds at the top of every single rep. And again, that is just to emphasize that shortened range and really make sure that we're getting the hamstring short before going into some heavier work. The reason that I'm using a lying hamstring curl is purely just choice in this gym. There's actually a lot of hamstring curls. There's a lot of machines in general. This gym is incredible, as I always say whenever I do any kind of filming in this gym. Like, it's such a blessing to have it nearby, full of just incredible kit. But the hamstring stuff is a little bit off. So there's 2 seated hamstring curls, 1 standing hamstring curl, and the lying hamstring curl that I'm on. So my first choice would actually be a seated hamstring curl because I personally enjoy the stability of it. There's studies out there which show that a lying hamstring curl can lead to more hypertrophy within in comparison, sorry, to like a seated one, which I understand, but there's also a lot of other factors at play, and personally I would rather have seated in there if I can only choose one, but both of the seated ones have a restraining pad that sits below the knee, which is horrendous for joint health. If you didn't know, if you're using a seated hamstring curl that's got a restraining pad below your knee, honestly, it's not worth it. It's creating a lot of shear force within the knee, because the knee joint, it doesn't sit still when you're going through knee flexion. It's moving. Joints don't create pure rotation, and it's basically trying to hold the joint in a position that it's just not gonna be able to sit in. So it's basically, to cut a long story short, creating a lot of shear force. The standing one I'd rather not use, again, just from lack of stability. So here I am, the lying one, which I do like. I mean, it's a Nautilus Nitro one, it's great, but that's the main reason why it's in there as opposed to a seated one. Going into the Adductor, again, this is another Nautilus Nitro piece. So I've got exactly the same rep ranges here. I've got the first set of 12 to 15 with a real focus on that shortened range, so 2-second pause. And I've also got then a slightly heavier set at 1x8 to 10, still very, very controlled. The heavier ones aren't just, throwing weight about, just as much control, but it's just not got that 2-second pause. What you're going to be seeing here is I'm holding my legs in a weird position. So I'm going to throw up a study on the screen, which shows that the adductor magnus is badly named, and it is more of an extensor of the hip than an adductor. However, when training it in adduction, it responds better with basically as little hip flexion as possible and as little knee flexion as possible, which is very handy because I'm short, so it means that I can minimize that and still get my legs to come together. Obviously, that is not the only adductor muscle, and that's why I'll kind of switch between different leg positions. But if we're looking to focus on the adductor magnus through adduction, then this sort of setup is better. And there's actually some companies that have cottoned on to that. Hammer Strength is a good example. They've got a plate-loaded adductor that actually has you in that position. So some companies are actually taking that study on board. Nautilus Nitro, again, leg extension. We've just got one set here of 12 to 15. This is me regretting my choice of training, i.e. bodybuilding. Could have played tiddlywinks or chess, but instead I decided to put myself through pain. I fucking hate this. I hate the leg extension. It just hurts, doesn't it? If it doesn't hurt, then, well, I mean, you're not doing it right, but I just hate it. There's not too much to say here. Obviously, this is a great piece of kit because we get a nice little drop off in weight as we go into a weakened position. So as you go into knee extension, you're getting weaker, so therefore it's good to be able to have a piece of kit like this one that actually the weight slightly drops off, so it just allows you to have what we'd call a congruent profile, which is always nice, especially also from the point of view of joint health, which is something that is just not taken seriously enough in this sport. It is getting better. There I am again, regretting my choices, but it's something that just needs to be such a priority. Leg press, again, regretting my decision here on sport choice. I'm starting to see fairies at the end of these sets because they're just so intense, but that's what I need to do in order to get my legs to grow. So there you go, that's the decision that I've made. 2 sets here, 1x6 to 8 and a 1x10 to 12. This leg press is beautiful on the joints. This is a Nautilus piece. I don't think it's Nautilus Nitro, I think it's just called a Nautilus leverage leg press, and basically the way it moves, it's kind of designed with something known as a 4-bar linkage system, which sounds very fancy, but it basically just means it moves like your joints do naturally, so it just feels really good on the ankles, the knees especially. What you don't see in these clips, but I really want to emphasize, is the fact that I'm always checking for my natural and personal range of motion. So that's something again that is just not respected enough in this sport, and I do think it's getting better, but we're not all designed to go ass to grass. We've all got completely different abilities when it comes to range of motion, which is, it depends on so many things, and it's not just mobility, it's actual just structure, like our bones, which you're never going to change. So before I go into these sorts of sets, I'm always double checking my ranges of motions when I'm warming up, and I'll run for a few drills with those at some point on YouTube, so that you can see some good ways of kind of working that out for yourself, because it's so important, and I'd love to try and get that info out there so that you all know what you're doing, and you're not putting yourself into positions that could, even if it doesn't give you problems in the moment, in, you know, years time, if you've been doing this kind of thing for a while, is going to give you kind of aches and pains that you just shouldn't be going through. Don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, it's an extreme sport, or it's a sport where you're able to take it to the extremes, but if we can manage the joints well, we shouldn't be getting things like arthritis. Next one, Bulgarian split squat. I have only got one set programmed on this at the minute. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier on at the start of this video, I've got some more quad stuff going on a second day now, so I haven't got to cram as much into this one session, which is really nice. So with this one, obviously just a standard Bulgarian split squat, using I don't really know what it's called, but it's from MyroFit, and this is what it's designed for. It's for your back foot to be up on, which is a lot more comfortable for me, again, with my range of motion. Sometimes a bench can just be a little bit too high. Obviously depends on what bench it is, but a lot of the ones in this gym are just a little bit too high for me. So I think it might have something to do with the fact that I'm 5'4". But yeah, this box just feels a lot nicer. This set is actually quite funny here. When I get into this, you're going to see that I end up readjusting a couple of times, and that's because my supporting leg gets on getting cramp in my foot, which is an unfortunate side effect of it. Wait for it. I was about to get cramp. If you're just tuning in and you've never watched my videos before, by the way, I do train in 5-finger Vibrams. It's just something that you have to accept about me, and I'm not ashamed of it. I love my Vibrams. People sometimes sometimes people get these 5-finger Vibrams and they ruin them because they don't wear socks in them. So if you are thinking about getting 5-finger Vibrams and joining the crew, get yourself some little toe socks, because then you won't have to buy a new pair every 3 months when they start to smell really bad. The socks are the key here. So with this set, obviously we're just going through 8 to 10 reps each side, again following my personal range of motion. These felt really smooth, move like butter, and they hurt, and I'm looking forward to doing them again next week. On to some calf work. So these are going to be the last couple of clips for this leg day. So I've got 2 different calf exercises. We've got a standing Smith machine calf raise for 3 sets, 10 reps. With a standing one, we're looking to work more sort of gastroc, and we're able to shift a bit more weight with this. What you'll see in a second is I'm going to just show one of the other sets, which takes my head out of it, but you can actually see my feet. I want to really emphasize the fact that calf work, you've got to be so careful with it, because your calves carry you around day to day. This is the reason why so many people struggle to grow them, is because they're so resilient. I like to do 2 things. The first one is some pausing, so I'll pause at the bottom and pause at the top. And I also like to keep the rest relatively short, which is something you very rarely hear me say. I'm normally an advocate of rest as long as you need, but to me the calves are just so resilient. Those 2 techniques are really great to throw in, so make sure you're not just jumping the weight around, because when you do that, you're just not working the calves. It's as simple as that. Apologies, he was hoovering the gym. We should let him do that, but the wire was in the way. But yeah, the other thing is just to that's because my calves are hurting. Don't rest for too long. That's my opinion anyway. So we'll see. This is where I need to put in a little disclaimer. So you've just seen me there doing like 85 kilo calf raises on the Smith machine, and then we come over here and we do itty bitty 20 kilos. This is literally because last year, it's nearly been a year now, I actually sprained my ankle and it was quite bad. It was a grade 2, so there was a little tear in it, and unfortunately it's the seated calf raise that I seem to struggle with the most since then. I rehabbed it really well, but this exercise I just have to be so careful on, which proves that it's more an issue with the soleus than the gastroc, because seated calf raises, you're biasing the soleus more than the gastroc. So it's a little bit weird when you see me going from 85 to 20. This one, we're going for slightly higher reps anyway, with 15. But yeah, that's my little disclaimer there. But again, keeping those pauses in there and not bouncing the weight around. So there we go. That is the full leg day. That's the Monday that I'm currently doing, and progressing that as much as I can. And like I said at the beginning, really, there'll only be changes made to that in terms of like the sets, like the rep ranges, and exercise selection if something isn't working. Most of that stuff should hopefully be the same for the whole year. In terms of the rest of the split, obviously I'd like to dive into all of those in separate videos, but the general split is legs, push, pull. We then rest. We do pull and legs on a Friday, and then a final push session, which I always struggle to say, on a Saturday. If you've been following me, you'll know that the only difference there in terms of splits is that Friday used to be what I'd call posterior, and now I'm calling it pull and legs, because the idea is that I'm trying to really bring up my quads. Obviously, I'm at a point where everything just needs bringing up, but my quads were a real lagging area, and they actually improved a lot last year, but I know that I can get more out of them with a little bit more volume, because I was recovering well with what I was doing before and they were growing. So I know that if I throw in a bit more, keep recovery a big priority, there'll be no problems having more volume in there, and hopefully it should only benefit me in terms of quad size. So that's really the only change in terms of split. So hopefully next video I will be walking you through another one of the workouts. During this bulk we'll also get in things like some full days of eating, all coming over the coming months. So they're things that you're interested in. Of course, subscribe. I'll see you around here often. Leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Comment any questions below, or just any general feedback. I'd love to hear it. And I will see you all in the next one.